pay attention to this. It is day, mid-afternoon. The sun is high, casting short, sharp shadows across the grass. A fixed security camera captures a generic backyard in Northwood, Ohio. The scene is oddly static, dominated by a stretch of green lawn and a simple wooden privacy fence that separates this home from the rest of the world. The only figures in the frame are a small boy, 10 years old, and a towering figure in an oversized costume, a clown. There is no party in progress. There is no sound of laughter. There is just the silent, low-quality feed of a digital eye that never blinks. This footage, timestamped August 14th, 2024, at 7:08 p.m., is the subject of one of the most frustrating and haunting investigations in Ohio state history. The boy is Ethan Miller. The costumed man is a hired entertainer, a stranger to the family known only by the stage name Flicker. The film captures their final interaction, and it is not a struggle. It is not a visible fight. It is a departure so sudden, so strangely coordinated, that it baffled police for weeks and left a community paralyzed by a fear they couldn't name. Ethan's parents, Richard and Clara, were inside the house at this precise moment. They were in the kitchen, making the final arrangements for what was supposed to be a small 10th birthday celebration later that evening. They had accepted the services of Flicker on the basis of an unprecedentedly low price found on a community bulletin board. It was a simple economic decision, a way to offer entertainment to their son without the financial strain that usually accompanied such events. They had minimal interaction with the man. They relied on the facade of the costume, the bright paint and the wig, and the inherent assumption of professional conduct that comes when you hire a service. They believed Ethan was safe in the yard, mere feet from the back door. They believed the transaction was innocent, but the camera documents a moment of utter, terrifying stillness. The clown and the boy are near the center of the frame. There is no visible coercion. There is no physical threat, no weapon drawn. They are simply standing there, two disparate figures, in a quiet backyard. Then, the action happens. The clown turns his back to the camera. It is a large, sudden movement, a theatrically exaggerated pivot that momentarily obscures Ethan from the lens. In that split second of visual obstruction, Ethan moves. It is a run, a sprint of pure kinetic energy. But he does not run toward the safety of the house. He does not run toward his parents. He runs toward the small wooden gate in the far fence. To the untrained eye, it appears the child is running from something, using the clown's turn as cover to make a break for it. But the clown's turn was a lie. He pivots back instantly. A swift, deliberate motion that catches the child's trajectory perfectly. There is no rough handling. The clown simply meets Ethan at the gate, gripping his arm with an unsettling lack of struggle. The clown pulls the latch, opens the gate, and steps through. The child follows the adult. He is not pushed. He is guided. At 7:10 p.m., the gate swings shut on the empty yard. The boy and the clown have vanished. No screams, no tire squeals, just silence. When Ethan's parents emerged moments later, carrying a tray of drinks, the void was immediate and absolute. The panic was instantaneous. The police arrived within minutes, expecting a frantic search for a predator who had dragged a kicking and screaming child away. A clear case of physical abduction. What they found instead was the video. And the video suggested something far more complex. Something that made the officers pause. It was a disappearance that looked, to the confounding frustration of everyone watching, like a rendezvous. The initial theory focused on complicity. The video didn't look like a kidnapping. It looked like a plan. Was the clown a family acquaintance? Had Ethan been coached? Had the boy run to a secret game or a surprise he thought was part of the birthday? Detectives spent days chasing down social media posts, checking family friends, and diving into the Miller family's history, trying to reconcile the urgency of Ethan's run with the clown's calm control. They found nothing. Ethan Miller was a normal child. He loved soccer and video games. He had no history of running away, no secret online life, no reason to leave his home. His parents were cleared of suspicion almost immediately. Their grief was raw, and their confusion was genuine. The clown, however, was a ghost. The phone number used to book the appointment was a dead burner phone, activated 2 days prior and discarded immediately after. The ID shown briefly to the father was a high-quality forgery. The trail went cold almost immediately, leaving the police with the haunting question that kept them awake at night. If this wasn't an abduction, what was it? The investigation broke open only when a junior analyst, frustrated by the clean simplicity of the Vanishing Act, began looking beyond Ohio. He started comparing the Flickr case to disappearances with similar timelines in other states. He wasn't looking for clowns specifically. He was looking for the method. The correlation was thin, but one terrifying pattern surfaced repeatedly. A low-cost tutor who had vanished with a student in Illinois, a volunteer face painter who disappeared from a community fair in Indiana alongside a 7-year-old girl, a magician who walked away with a boy from a park in Kentucky. The connecting thread was not violence, it was access. All cases involved a child being left alone with a low-cost contracted professional whose background check was minimal or non-existent. The perpetrators had all vanished without a struggle. The children had seemingly gone willingly, or at least, without making a scene. This realization led investigators to a dark corner of the internet. It wasn't the surface web, and it wasn't the typical criminal marketplaces. It was a specialized, invite-only forum dedicated to the logistics of what was termed the clean acquisition. The dominant voice on this forum was a user known only as the Quiet Gardener. The posts were cold, instructional, and focused entirely on technique. There was no emotion in the writing, only a clinical breakdown of how to steal a life. The Quiet Gardener described the use of low-cost services, tutors, entertainers, helpers, as the perfect camouflage. He wrote about exploiting the exhaustion and financial constraints of working-class parents. He explained that a low price is not seen as a warning sign by a struggling family. It is seen as a miracle. It lowers defenses. He described the clown costume not as a source of fun, but as an effective tool of psychological control. The paint and the wig create a professional barrier. Parents focus on the function of the entertainer, not the identity of the man beneath the paint. They don't look at his eyes. They look at the red nose. The child, conditioned by cartoons and culture to associate the image with fun, is confused, not immediately resistant. And then, investigators found the post that stopped their hearts. It was a description of the extraction, or, as the Quiet Gardener called it, the walk-off. The post read, "A staged momentary distraction is necessary to provoke a sudden, panicked flight from the target toward the nearest exit. The adult intercepts this movement, turning the flight into a silent, quick departure. The lack of visible struggle protects the adult from immediate pursuit. To the observer, or the camera, it appears as a planned outing. The precise moment captured on the Miller's CTE footage, the feigned turn, the boy's sprint, the silent guidance through the gate, was not a spontaneous crime. It was not a game gone wrong. It was the perfect execution of the walk-off, rehearsed and meticulously planned. The mystery wasn't how the clown took him. It was why he made it look like the boy was running away. It was a psychological trick designed to buy time, to confuse the first responders, to make the parents doubt what they were seeing. Cybercrimes units worked tirelessly to de-anonymize the Quiet Gardener. Through a complex web of IP routing and slip-ups in digital hygiene, they traced the connection to a registered theatrical supply business in a neighboring state. The man behind the screen was identified as Marcus Vane, 51 years old. Vane was a former theatrical worker who had spent years perfecting his ability to blend in and disappear. He specialized in creating masks, both literal and metaphorical. He had no record of violent crime, which is why he had slipped through the cracks for so long. He was a phantom who lived in the spaces between people's attention. By the time police located his warehouse, 2 hours away from the Miller home, he was gone. The space had been meticulously sanitized with bleach and industrial cleaners, but in their haste, or perhaps out of arrogance, a section of the flooring in the back office had been left loose. Beneath the floorboards, investigators found a cache of archived videotapes. These were not digital files. They were physical tapes, labeled with various names and dates going back a decade. These tapes confirmed the terrifying scope of Vane's activities. They showed Vane operating under different service guises: a plumber, a tutor, a coach, a clown. He was always targeting vulnerable children in low supervision, trust-based settings. Ethan Miller was not an anomaly. He was one victim in a horrifying, long-running pattern. The footage on the tapes wasn't for sale. There was no evidence of a distribution network. It was his private, sinister documentation. He kept them as trophies of his intelligence, proof that he could outsmart the parents, the police, and the world. The national search for Marcus Vane was intense. It was fueled by the shocking details of his method, which had leaked to the press. The public was horrified by the idea that trust could be weaponized so effectively. Every parent who had ever hired a tutor or a birthday entertainer felt a chill run down their spine. Vane had turned the social contract of service into a predatory weapon. He was arrested months later in a distant state. He was found working at a small carnival, running a booth, hiding in plain sight once again. When the FBI moved in, he didn't run. He didn't fight. He simply raised his hands, a small, smug smile playing on his lips. He was calm and entirely unremorseful. In the interrogation room, Marcus Vane was a cipher. He spoke softly, with an articulate intelligence that unnerved the detectives. He admitted to the walk-off. He described the mechanics of the staged distraction with clinical pride, treating the abduction of a child like a magic trick he was explaining to a novice audience. He explained how he whispered to the boy, telling him they were going to play a hide-and-seek game on the parents, prompting the sprint to the gate. But on the one question that mattered, the location of Ethan Miller, he remained completely silent. He would talk about the knot he used on the gate latch. He would talk about the makeup he applied. But when asked where Ethan was, he would simply stare at the wall, the silence stretching out for hours. The trial became a study in premeditation. The prosecution demonstrated that Vane had not acted on impulse. He had chosen the clown disguise specifically to exploit the trust and chaos of a birthday party. They played the CT footage, breaking it down frame by frame, matching Vane's movements to the instructions found in the Quiet Gardeners forum posts. The defense attempted to argue the complexity of the video, suggesting a hidden relationship between the boy and the man, trying to muddy the waters with the initial confusion of the police. But the jury saw through the manipulation. The tapes found under the floorboards painted a picture of a serial predator who viewed children as objects to be acquired through intellect and trickery. Marcus Vane was convicted on multiple counts of kidnapping and predation. He was sentenced to consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. The judge, in a rare public statement during sentencing, condemned the defendant for weaponizing the very symbol of childhood celebration. He called Vane a thief of innocence, who exploited the economic vulnerabilities of families to feed his own darkness. But a conviction is not a return. Ethan Miller remains missing. His parents, Richard and Clara, have transformed their grief into a crusade. They now advocate fiercely for stricter background checks and regulations on independent contractors who work with children. They travel the country, speaking to parent groups and law enforcement. Their message is simple and devastating. Do not accept the bargain price without verification. They speak publicly about the devastating clarity of the final seconds of the video. They recount the moment they first saw it, how it appeared at first to be a strange game. They talk about the horror of realizing that the game was a trap. The sprint was not freedom, it was a response to a command. The gate opening was not an escape, it was the closing of a trap. The security footage remains sealed from the general public, deemed too disturbing in its implications to be released widely. But the terrifying logic of the disappearance continues to haunt the investigators who worked the case. They see it in their sleep. A boy running, a clown waiting, and a gate closing on a lifetime of trust, all staged to perfection. Marcus Vane holds his silence in a supermax prison. It is his final act of control over the Miller family. He knows that by withholding the location, he keeps a part of them trapped in that backyard forever. He will not admit that the entire sequence, the price, the costume, the boy's desperate sprint, was all part of a professional, perfected plan to erase a life. The most dangerous predators are not the ones who drag children into vans with brute force. They are the ones who do not need force. They are the ones who use the mask of service. They use the lure of affordability. They use the momentary distraction of a celebration to gain the perfect, silent access. They stand in our backyards, invited guests, waiting for the camera to look away, or for the camera to capture exactly what they want us to see, a lie. Ethan Miller deserved better. He deserved to be safe in his own home. He deserved a proper birthday with cake and laughter, not a silent exit into the unknown. The truth is rarely simple, and predators thrive on the silence we give them. They thrive on our assumption that the person in the costume is safe, that the person we hired is good. Don't let these stories fade into the dark. Don't let the silence of the gate closing be the end of the story. Stay vigilant. Look closer at who you let through your door. And remember that sometimes the monster isn't hiding in the shadows. Sometimes he's standing right in the center of the frame, waiting for you to turn your back